Okay. Well, you said my name. My name is Maurizio. I live in Hong Kong. For openSUSE, I mostly, let's say, I'm one of the developers and maintainers of XFCE Desktop. Um, what else? I am in the wine business and restaurant business. That's like what I do as profession. And Linux is kind of like a hobby for me. It has been since college period, although I never really pursued it as a career. Things may change. Who knows? Let's see.
Uh, yeah, I can do next. Yeah, my name is Axel Braun. My username is DocB because it was my nickname at university as well. I'm using SUSE formally since I think the late 90s when OS2 was smashed against a wall and not really surviving any longer. I converted completely to Linux. I started then building the software that I needed on OBS and maintaining a bunch of packages there. I have to admit, I can do some programming, but I'm clearly not a developer. I pay my bills with consulting work. I work as functional consultant and project manager, mostly in SAP implementations and in processes all around or all along the supply chain. And yeah, I was now 2 years serving on the board, and I would stand for re-election.
My name is Nate. I go by Nate Wolf or Cubicle Nate. I'm part of the Destination Linux network, and I'm the openSUSE guy there. I say I have an almost unhealthy obsession with the openSUSE project. That's my tagline, which is true. I'm not technically as competent as probably this entire panel here that I'm looking at, but I do like to do documentation. So I like to edit and update wikis. You know, when I figure something out, I like to problem solve and try and understand how things work. Everything in my house at this point runs openSUSE, but minus my Amigas and my Commodore 64. Those run, you know, what they run, and I just I love it. I've got you know, I got my toys. I got you know, things. I promote it. I'm just you know, just what I do design work, CAD work as a profession. I recently got laid off due to the Rona, and so now I'm doing more
Cheers to
construction
that.
work. Yeah, I do construction work right now, and I've started doing a buddy of mine owns a business, and so I've actually been managing a lot of his like building permits and doing all that work in openSUSE now. So I don't have any reason for anything but that at this point. So I do test other distributions out. You know, like I know someone here I guess likes Fedora on this panel that I heard about. So I do test other things, but I just happen to like the openSUSE thing better. It's the way I don't have to worry about my system breaking. I run Tumbleweed on most things or Leap, and a few others, and then I just don't have to worry about it. I set it up and I kind of forget about it basically, and if I neglect a machine, like I have my server behind me, it actually runs Tumbleweed, and I'm always amazed and thankful so much how awesome the project is because it's literally it's it, it's so effortless, and I just absolutely love it. So I'm kind of obsessed, almost unhealthy obsession. So almost.
Yeah. Yep. I think that leaves me. So yeah, my name's Neal. I live in the United States in Norwalk, Connecticut. My day job, I'm a DevOps engineer, which at least in the context of what I do, it mostly is software delivery engineering and release engineering and that sort of thing. Um, my professional involvement with openSUSE began with me introducing a private instance of OBS at my workplace, and that went to great success. And since then, I've had the privilege of being able to contribute to the openSUSE project, both professionally as well as personally. Um, as Nate alluded to earlier, I don't openSUSE. I mean, I love openSUSE Tumbleweed, and that's the distribution I use because it's a fantastic rolling distribution, and I feel like it is understated how nice it is to have a rolling release distribution that gives you, as I like to call it, a safety net. Like you can go wild with it and not break it. Or if you broke it, you can fix it really easily by going back to a point where it wasn't broken. And I think a lot of people underestimate what kind of power that gives you, what kind of freedom that gives you. But I also run Fedora Server and Fedora Workstation. Well, no Fedora Workstation. I don't like GNOME. Fedora KDE. So I run Fedora KDE for a lot of my computers, as well as Fedora Server for some of my VPSs and whatnot. But I also have openSUSE Tumbleweed that I run in a lot of places because Tumbleweed gives me that freedom and flexibility, and it's really awesome to use. For me, standing onto the board was, I've been involved in a lot of different aspects in the openSUSE project as a contributor. I maintain the DNF package manager. I've done a bunch of work in the base system, done some work, taking stuff in openSUSE and bringing them to upstream projects. I've even pulled things from openSUSE and put them in Fedora, and that sort of thing, trying to, bring the communities closer. And I was really happy that I was able to, through my workplace, Datto, I was able to sponsor the openSUSE conference this year. It unfortunately went into a format that I was less than happy with because of the Rona. But, we still had a great conference, and I got to have the wonderful opportunity to meet a lot of great people. And I think that's really the core of this, of why I'm running for the board, is I want to support the great people in this community and supercharge openSUSE in some way, or help openSUSE supercharge itself to becoming a more visible, more awesome, and more well-recognized player in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that is really, really important, and what you said is pretty much true. I mean, everybody is making a hype around Arch and Manjaro, but it's way not that stable as Tumbleweed is, for example. And you can really run it more or less unattended, but I mean, whom do I tell? You know it probably better than I do, right?
Yeah, no, we don't have a consistent great message that people can clearly understand of like what makes Tumbleweed the best choice if you want a rolling platform. And I think that's easily fixable. It's just refining that message and figuring out what to say and doing that sort of thing. Kind of grunty work, but we can do it. But yeah, I think that if we had that solid message, I would easily say we'd beat Arch, we'd beat Manjaro, we'd be on top in terms of like the rolling distributions people would use, because we have what it takes.
True. But if you look at pages like DistroWatch, I mean, if you look a little bit deeper into it, it's about more or less generating clicks and how much clicks have you achieved this week, and then you are up to the top. And as long as you are there in the 10th or whatever places, for an unexperienced user, it's probably not looking that attractive, right?
Yeah, that's unfortunate, and I really hate the DistroWatch hit page thing because they say it's a fun thing, but like it's not great, because what it does is it reinforces this odd perception of how Linux distros work and stuff like that. But that's not where I would like to like, if I had the ability to, and if I were really thinking about how we want to deliver our message, direct advocacy and getting the buzz around openSUSE Tumbleweed is the thing I want to do more of, because if you look at that list, Fedora is at near the bottom of the top 10. I think it's like 7 or 8 or something like that. I don't remember. I don't care. But it's very clear and very obvious that Fedora has a ton of buzz, and every release cycle people talk about it a lot. The podcasts care about it. people don't go say SUSE is an also run. People don't say that openSUSE is dead or whatever, or surprised that it's not dead or things like that, because what they've done is that they've leveraged their existence and they've leveraged their reputation to get people to think about them more, and then they feed back on it over and over and over again. Like, I personally, I was talking to Maurizio yesterday about this. I personally the last time I remember everyone talking about openSUSE in like such a really big way was when Leap happened 5 years ago. And before that, I remembered the one that stuck out in my mind was 6 years ago when openSUSE switched to Btrfs by default. That was the big deal that got me to put openSUSE back on my consideration for my systems, because that was a differentiator, and I was interested in good technology, and I love the idea of being able to say, no matter what I do, I can't break my system. That, like, these are all things that, like, Nate tries to downplay his intelligence and his ability to do, stuff, but like, Nate does crazy crap on his computer all the time, and like, his computers aren't broken, because at the end of the day, if he messes up, it's boot, go back one point in time, undo the thing, and you're done, and it's fixed. And like, that's powerful. That is unbelievably powerful, and it's not something we take advantage of. And then there's also all the other things that we do in the community that kind of quietly, we need to talk about that more. We need to have some kind of advocacy, brand presence spread. I don't have specifically the answers to those problems yet. I mean, but like, these are the kinds of things that I see as an issue that I would like to find a way to improve. And the reason I'm running for the board is because, while obviously as an individual person I can go and talk on podcasts and whatever about it, being in the position of the board, while in practice not terribly meaningful from a contribution, things happen perspective, people sit up and pay attention more, because they think, oh, this is a person in leadership. That means that they know stuff and they do things. I'm no different than I was like yesterday, but other people, they change the way they think about it when someone like, say, Gerald or you or myself show up and talk about openSUSE, because that's the perception. And I don't know if that's enough to make openSUSE become more known, but it's at least something.
I agree with you. You see this a lot with the podcast when, for example, Poppy or the developers of Elementary are speaking, right? And you can see how much attention they get by just like explaining what they're doing. And this is something that I'm afraid we lack a little bit behind. I think it was somehow happening maybe a couple of years ago, where a few times, like with Richard on the London show, when he was talking about Leap and Tumbleweed, but that has kind of stopped. At least I haven't seen anything like that recently. I've seen you on podcasts maybe last year, but other than that, there was no one in position of leadership doing that. And I think probably going forward, maybe a couple of years ago, where a few times, like with Richard on the London show, when he was talking about Leap and Tumbleweed, but that has kind of stopped. At least I haven't seen anything like that recently. I've seen you on podcasts maybe last year, but other than that, there was no one in position of leadership doing that. And I think probably going forward, maybe a couple of years ago, where a few times, like with Richard on the London show, when he was talking about Leap and Tumbleweed, but that has kind of stopped. At least I haven't seen anything like that recently. I've seen you on podcasts maybe last year, but other than that, there was no one in position of leadership doing that. And I think probably going forward, maybe a couple of years ago, where a few times, like with Richard on the London show, when he was talking about Leap and Tumbleweed.
I need to refresh, because right now Maurizio is looping, his audio is looping on me, and I can't do anything.
There was no one in
to mute the stream or something.
doing that. And I think probably going forward, maybe a couple of years ago, where
I mean, it's kind of fun.
Like with Richard on the London show. When was
Is it looping everyone? Is everyone hearing this, or is it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I thought it was just me.
I think Gertjan needs to mute his stream or something.
There was no one
Need to mute the stream or something.
doing that, and I think somehow going forward, maybe a couple of years ago, where
I mean, it's kind of fun.
like with
I mean, all of my
I'm
trains
very
of
sorry.
thought
I
are
think we
going.
need to switch off
Is
something.
everyone hearing this? Or
I
what?
killed
Okay.
everything.
I thought it was just joke.
I can solve it. Gertjan needs to mute. Knurped is having the stream on in the background. Try to
doing that.
turn his volume off.
I think somehow going forward, a couple of years ago, where
I mean, it's kind of fun.
Prefaced the wrong audio device or something.
okay, how do we stop it? Okay.
No,
Do
it's
you
not.
remember that episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where they kept looping in time and blowing up? That's what it felt like.
I thought I started hearing myself, and I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah. You know, that's what makes technology fun.
Yeah. I thought I
Yeah.
was stepping or something.
So I was going to dovetail into what Neal was saying about like the benefits of openSUSE. I think that really need to be touted is whether leap or tumbleweed. Really, I like to mess with my system and do silly things, as Neal alluded to, and basically I can technology fun.
Yeah.
I can dork around with it, and there's no consequences. To what Neal was saying about like the benefits of openSUSE, I think that really need to be touted is whether leap or tumbleweed. Really, I like to mess with my system and do silly things, as Neal alluded to, and basically I can technology fun.
Yeah.
I can dork around with it, and there's no consequences. To what Neal was saying about. Are we hearing a loop again? Is that happening?
Yes. Yes.
Sounds like.
Okay. Whether leap or tumbleweed. Really,
It's coming from
I
Knurped.
like to mess with my
So I
system.
think
and
his
silly
settings
things,
he has the stream on some wrong settings or something.
basically I can technology fun.
Yeah.
I can dork around with.
I think Knurped is using a headset, isn't he? Yeah, it's like.
Now it's better.
All right.
So-
Are we not
What
going to
was-
hear ourselves over again now? Are we good now?
We good?
Hopefully.
I can't take it anymore.
It was interesting hearing Nate talk back to himself.
Yeah, I felt like I was scolding myself there for a little bit. It was really a little bit strange. But I think that what I used to be in radio sales for a while, and one of the things that we really pushed, like in trying to sell a product, was to focus in on like the like a rhinoceros with like one key hard message. And I don't know what it is for everybody else, but for me, like the joy of openSUSE is that I'm able to break it and unbreak it so easily. There's no consequence. There's no reinstalling. There's no having to faff about to try and get your system working again. You just have to roll it back. And I feel like that story's got to be told and maybe presented a little bit better. And I know it is. It's talked about, but there's but I'd really like to push some of those key benefits, like that, the personally, because if people can recognize that, because you always hear about people who break their Arch systems and they have to spend a day rebuilding it, and I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? I mean, do you cut yourself for fun also? Is that what you do? But there's and I agree with Neal. Pretty much Neal and I are in agreement on I think pretty much everything at this point. But about really promoting those benefits and having it in the conversation more. And I know that Neal's been on I think Linux Unplugged quite a bit, and you kind of set people straight on the story. And so that's I think that's awesome. So are we supposed to like start taking questions, or the moderator, are you gonna like start kicking out questions to us, or are we gonna just kind of grab them? How do you want to do that? Because I love question and answer time.
Yes, we definitely will do that. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
we will do that. We will try to make sure that the questions are merged at the most appropriate times, and perhaps if you have, because the conversation seemed to be like between specific people, but as soon as we have the opportunity to open up to everyone, we can start asking them.
Yeah, maybe we give Knurf the opportunity to introduce himself. He seems to try to say something, but We don't
Yeah.
hear anything now.
Well, because he's right now he's muted. So, although I don't know if he's muted because we muted him or if he's muted because he muted him.
As soon as we have the opportunity to open up to everyone,
It's because we muted him. Right.
No, is that muted now? Though?
the opportunity to introduce himself. He seems to try to say something, but we're back in the loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's right.
I think he's put
Now I
on
can
his
hear
settings or
myself.
something is wrong.
We could use charades. That would be fun.
Yeah, sure. We will just mime everything.
Yes. Reading lips. Reading lips is also good.
Right. Like that will work so well for all.
okay.
Speaking Dutch, so it's probably.
Just for fun, I will butcher my attempt to like lip speak Spanish, and that'll go better.
Okay.
I can speak Italian to you if you want.
I mean, I might actually just a tiny bit understand it because I did learn Spanish, and they're not that different. They're different.
I've been studying.
No,
I've been studying Latin.
They're different,
so
but similar. Yeah.
I can speak Danish.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh no, we're screwed with Danish. Like we're screwed with Danish.
no. I would like a cheese Danish.
Cheese Danishes are good. I like cheese Danishes.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh man, now I want a cheese Danish.
I
But where
You
is-
brought up Danish.
He doesn't say anything, eh? No.
Well, I think when he tries to say something, we just hear ourselves instead.
Yeah, I think his audio setting is something is wrong.
Hello,
Not-
Groningen. Hello, Groningen. Where are you?
Not to be mean.
Yeah, maybe you understand.
Well, let's not blame Paul's audio.
I will.
I love Paul.
Wow.
Audio is going.
He is muted to the web interface.
Well, yes, he's muted because if he's not muted, we hear ourselves.
Try it again. Try it.
So, Gertjan, you should have the floor as soon as you can fix your audio, because it's your turn to introduce yourself.
We didn't have this problem earlier today or yesterday.
No, we didn't. 8 hours ago, this was fine.
Yeah.
I will call him.
Gertjan is still
Perhaps
muted.
you can relay his presentation through your phone.
Right.
I mean,
We can just
Why
use
not
the
at
chat
this
window
point?
to
Audio
type.
quality is kind of bad.
I'm kidding. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Even if the price is split between the two of you.
I tried ringing, but
Are you going for it?
he's not at home. Hey, yo. Hey, yo. Zo. Ben je er?
Ja, ik probeer te joinen.
Ja. Als jij je micro...
Ben, mute yourself.
zien.
Ja, nee, dat heb ik al gefixt.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Sure.
So
Oké.
Hoop ik.
Okay. He's trying to connect again. He fixed his audio problem.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Then we can actually get an intro from him.
Yeah.
And maybe not hear ourselves in the process.
We can sing.
I mean, it's kind of fun. We could do like sing a song like a round, like
Yeah, no.
that would be fun. Row your boat gently down the stream.
Sounds like a
Or is
bad
it-
Angola.
No.
Schiet op.
Well, you have to time it right.
Right. Oh, jeez. I don't want to think about having to compute like timing the loop back on ourselves.
Could be fun. I'm just saying, it's a challenge.
It is a challenge. I will give you that, but it's a challenge in madness.
Yeah, after hearing myself 5 times, I'm gonna pass, honestly.
Hearing the same sentence 5 times, I'm
Yeah.
good.
still try. We still try. Ja.
Yep, that's fine. We should get this show on the
Wat kan
road.
jullie hier?
Allemaal aan de vraag. Er stond dit openSUSE forum.
So the first question from Comrade, what topic or issue do you want to concentrate working on? Next to the things that we've already specified on our pages, or repeating what we've already written?
Okay. I guess I'll take it first because I'm as good of a choice as any to do that. Let's see.
Perhaps, sorry to interrupt. Perhaps we could break that down into a top 3 or something, so that it's easy to follow and pick up. Like top 3 priorities.
Oh, okay. I was confused about the context of the top 3. I was like, what? There was only one question here.
Yeah.
So it's a little. I'm going to have a hard time disambiguating between myself as a candidate for the board and myself as an individual contributor in the project. So I'm not going to try. But what I'm going to say is that the top 3 things that I think about the most that I want to move towards that isn't on my board platform. One is kind of technical. I have been on a 2+ year long journey of making openSUSE and Fedora more cross-compatible across packaging, across building software, installing software, configuration, and that sort of thing. And it stems from my experience at work where I continually had troubles in the beginning justifying SUSE Linux distribution support for some of the stuff that we've done and that we've released, because to be blunt, the market share for SUSE distributions is very low. And I realized fairly early on that one of the problems we have is that outside of the SAP market, openSUSE isn't really pitched much or talked about much. I mean, people generally understand that SUSE and SAP are like this, but outside of that, not much. And I wanted to make it a more equitable offering in the sense that, hey, if you've got packages that were built for like some older version of Fedora or Red Hat or whatever, and you want to make the switch to openSUSE, like the interfaces will be there, the software will be there, the configuration will be in the right places, everything will just kind of work. And then you get to experience the benefits that SUSE platform offers on top, like the Btrfs with the full system snapshots, YAST as the configuration tool, and the stellar KDE experience if you're using KDE, or the GNOME experience if you use GNOME, and that was my first personal priority, and I've done quite a fair bit of work in that front. I'm still continuing on that. The second priority that I have is trying to personally come up with some kind of messaging around how to continually talk about openSUSE, because I personally struggle with trying to come up with unique and interesting things to bring openSUSE into a conversation, and despite me being plugged in and doing quite a lot of work in the openSUSE project, there's lots of people working on stuff, but the nature of how openSUSE development works, it's extremely rare that people have to talk to each other about doing things. That's sort of, there's a huge communication gap among contributors when it comes to making major or minor changes. And this sort of gap makes it difficult for me to have something to talk about whenever someone asks me about Linux. And then I guess my third thing that I really want to do, that I'm thinking of and I want to prioritize is I want to bring our infrastructure in our platform up to a service level where our contributors are happy being able to do great things within the openSUSE project. I've been working with Stasiuk almost all year on revamping our infrastructure. We launched our Pagure instance at code.opensuse.org just a few weeks ago. And we have the new mailing list system with Mailman 3 and HyperKitty. And there's a lot more that's on our roadmap that we want to try to get to. Like, I know Knurft has been, personally interested as a member of the openSUSE forums team in us making the transition from vBulletin to Discourse. And that's been a very, very painful, slow roll to try to get that going. But these are all initiatives that I am, looking at and trying to do. Because I think, if we have a good, a good platform, a good, good communication strategy, and a good infrastructure, we'll be set up for success. And so that's my personal focus points.
Okay, I think I've got the audio fixed now. If at least you can all hear me.
Yes, no, it works.
Yes, we
Perfect.
only hear you. We don't hear ourselves.
Yes, sorry, that was a crazy audio mess going on my ears. Unbearable. But it's fixed now.
Perfect.
For those who do not know me, I'm Gertjan, aka Knurft, from the Netherlands. And what do? Bits and pieces everywhere you can imagine. I do maintain. I have some packages in my own repo, some old shit. I work in the forums, hang around on Discord, help out people, Matrix, Telegram, whatever. Just what comes up and what needs to be done. If I can do anything, I'm up for it. Yeah, I'll keep it short.
Perfect.
I could go on for a couple of weeks, but
I think
It's all right.
We're fine.
Yeah. What was the question again? Sorry. Oh, sorry, I closed the
Top
chat.
3 priorities.
Top 3
okay.
priorities you will be concentrating on next
Okay.
year.
Okay. I already said some of this in the platform, but just to maybe reiterate a little bit. I think one of the, at least the first one that I would like to focus on is something that actually I came across with working with XFCE developers, which is that openSUSE, although everybody cannot knows what distributions are and or they know what SUSE is, in many occasions it happened to be something that maybe they used more than 10 years ago and they haven't really kept up with the other amazing things that we do, like OBS, Kiwi, and etc. And all these technologies can be quite useful. The reason I'm saying this is because I would like to sort of find a way to make sure that we remain relevant and that we do not like fall behind other options. I think in most cases, what I see is probably the various iterations of Ubuntu, or etc. I'm not trying to say that we should convert them, but at least like stay on the map, that we can meaningfully provide a platform for developers to do their own testings and bug fixing and so on. And this comes down a lot to what Neal already very well said earlier. It's a problem of communication. In many ways, we like to do things in our own little bubbles. Like even if I think of what we do at SFCE, most of the times we just do whatever we think is right, but we don't actually necessarily tell everybody what we are doing. And I think this happens quite a lot with the other different teams. On that level, having a little bit more of maybe transparency of what's going on, so that we can actually have a story to tell, and then motivate developers to sort of use our platform to do the work that they need to do. And that eventually will, I think, like a snowball, it will generate some positive contributions to our project, but also like get the noise and the buzz in the users that follow them. Because as I was briefly saying earlier, there are quite a lot of these people that have their own followers, or they have their own blogs, or they talk about what they do. And this is something that we don't necessarily do ourselves. So that would be one thing, to try to sort of like create a bridge into these like developer communities, to sort of like say, hey, we are here and we can help with the work. And I think we do have the technology and good tech to do this. The second priority that I would like to work on, I think it's try to have. I think we are trying to go there already, but like have an environment that doesn't scare people away, which has been. I don't want to bring up what happened recently. I think all of you know, but I think it has been a problem in terms of the image that we have, and mostly it's like when you look inside, the window, and we see the way we talk, or some of us do, and a little bit of infighting, a little bit of how to say, ways to address each other, or to to speak to each other that are not necessarily very respectful, or the way I think that you would not do this inside a restaurant or in public, right? So this is something that I hope we can work on, to actually find a way to make sure that our let's say identity is not tarnished by all of that. And one way to do it is, I think, is trying to make people understand that whatever is said on our platform that has the openSUSE name on is not their own living room, but it's a platform that is public, and everything that is said there has an impact and has consequences that will affect the entire project and all of us. So that's something that I would like to work on as well, along with the rest of the board, which I know, because we've seen it, that it's a work in progress that has already started. And third, I think something else that I would like a little bit more public presence of not necessarily the board, but of people that are involved. I know it's a lot to ask, and I'm not expecting that volunteers will want to necessarily go on podcasts and videos, but I would like really to see a little bit more, say, enthusiasm in sharing the work that we do, because it's something that I think is a story that is worth sharing. And this goes back to what Neal already said. I know I sound like I'm repeating a lot, but Neal and I spoke recently, and we are in line with a lot of things. So I kind of like agree with him on these points, that sometimes it's really hard to know what to tell people about what the work that we do. Even though, even myself, I'm directly involved in several areas of the project, and especially with SFCE. But even when we have people that come to us that they want to contribute, sometimes it's hard to sort of like guide them to explain how to do it. We lack a little bit of documentation on how it's done properly. And that's something that I wish we could improve as well.
Nice. Thanks a lot. So, yeah.
I can go. Sure. So I would say my 3 pushes for openSUSE, like I would say what my top 3 things that I'd like to personally, go after is one is messaging, and this is going to be obviously repeating, so I don't have to beat that horse, but but I think we need to really tell the story of that openSUSE is the distribution that kind of scales to your technical desires. If you just want a system that runs, you can have a system that runs. You have to think about it. You don't have to mess with it. But if you want to fiddle with it, or if you want to develop, or if you want to do all these, interesting things, the tools are there as well, and you can do these things without consequence, and and push the various tools like OBS. I think OBS is a lot more powerful than I even realize, frankly. So that would be my first thing. Is really push that messaging. It's the distribution that scales to your technical abilities. And now this is going to be a little bit more of a selfish push, but I think that openSUSE should be the maker's platform of choice. And what I mean by that is people who are into like CAD, CAM, any mechanical design, electrical circuit design, and so forth. I think openSUSE should be that platform of choice because, when you have a base system that you can rely on, that you don't have, where you have no consequences of making an oopsie, then you basically have a system that you can do development very safely on, specifically things like CAD and CAM and so forth, because you don't want to have failures, or even like Arduino and so forth. So if you have people who to develop custom apparatuses or whatever for specific appliances and so forth, I think openSUSE should be that platform. I mean, if I could wave my magic wand, I would love to rebuild an appliance like a refrigerator that totally runs on openSUSE because it would be more reliable, I think, from a software perspective. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Or things like appliances like I don't know if you've seen like the AMI kit. I don't know if anyone are like retro computer fans, the Amiga. Well, there's a system where they have like Linux and Amiga operating system commingling in such a way, and it's neat how they do that. And I don't think it's not built on openSUSE, but my thought is, how much better would that project be? And I wouldn't know how to approach this. I mean, the developers should do what developers want to do, but it seems like openSUSE should be the platform we develop those things on because of OBS and because of all those checks and everything else. You could continue have that continual integration development on things and have those constant checks, which I don't believe any other Linux platform has to this scale. At least I haven't seen it. I'm sure it exists to some level, but it seems like that openSUSE should be the platform for all these different little appliances and amazing ideas for creativity to flourish. And I'm not sure why it's not, because all the tooling is there. So that could be back to messaging. What if the right message is being told, the right story is being told about, you can do this with this, and here's the benefits of it, that would be great. And then I think the last bit that I would really push, and this is not so much an issue for me, but maybe for like newer users, and I don't know that this elusive like new user, I don't know how to go after them because I'm not, I came from the DOS era, so I've always thought Linux to be easy, and so I'm not really sure, I don't have a good concept here, but maybe clean up some of the user experience bits of it. So like for Tumbleweed, at least in Plasma, the package kit updater doesn't always do its thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The software -o, I know softwareopensuse.org, the marketplace, I think some people call them may call it that. I feel like that there should be maybe a little bit better integration with that from the desktop. So it's real nice, clean transition. So people I want to get some software. Oh, click here. Kind of like Ubuntu Mate has their software center. I think that's what it's called. I could be correct me if I'm an error on that. But little things like they do like little user experience touches that really attracts people into the platform, or for like Ubuntu and so forth. I think Elementor's got a nice thing too. But I just happen to find that like just some of the surface things seem a little rough. It's like the last mile, the last 5% maybe could use some polish, and that's kind of where some of my technical area lacks. But things like that, I'll try and push for something to make it easier for people to utilize, or at least more intuitively. Like the welcome screen, the new welcome screen, brilliant. That's great to have, that we have now, and I think that's great. So those would be my top 3 areas, and I think that would make openSUSE even greater.
Can do that. Actually, I've only listed 2 points on my campaign page, but that doesn't say that I have only 2 points to discuss. There is one point that is always on my mind, and most of my colleagues have already mentioned this. We need to spread the word about openSUSE, that it's a really easy and reliable system, and it is easy to contribute. I mean, Nate just mentioned it. The whole ecosystem that we're having with OBS, with OpenQA and something like that is pretty much unmatched. So I think, first of all, we need to make sure that we are not just a distribution, but we are a community project. So in the last weeks, I spent some time in rewriting the German Wikipedia page on that, because it was completely focusing on the Leap, basically, distribution. And now it explains that we're a community, that we have a history as a community, that we have a couple of tools, and that we have 4 great distributions at the moment. So the next step for me personally will be to rewrite the English page as well, because more people obviously read it in English than in German. And also to use the connections to the German press, the media, to bring openSUSE into their minds, because they are at the moment completely Ubuntu minded, nothing else. Having said this, another topic to work on is networking. So not only technical wise, so that we talk to other projects or other distributions, but as well in the political arena. So at the moment, I'm holding a little bit the context to the Free Software Foundation and to Open Forum Europe, which is a Brussels-based think tank, which supports policy and decision makers on the use of free software. So this is in general a very important topic to raise the awareness and the necessity of free software, because this is the basis for our digital sovereignty. But next to this, openSUSE just was not present there. And in between, they know myself, they know that openSUSE is engaged there, and I would like to continue this. In terms of other communities, I'm active as well in the New Health community. This is an ERP software, basically, where you can run a practitioner's office or a hospital or a nationwide health care system with it. And that had made a shift inside this project in between, that not just the main developer converted from Arch to Tumbleweed, but basically due to the quality of Leap, that it is basically enterprise level ready and enterprise level usable. Most of the new installations are already coming on Leap. So I think this gives us a good what is the word? A good reach into the market as well. I guess when we really have the 15.3 on the road, that we have basically the binary compatibility with the sleep packages, that will make it even more attractive for professional users to later on switch to SLE. And I'm not sure whether this is a benefit for openSUSE or more for SUSE, but nevertheless, we're working close together, and I guess we'll both benefit from it. Number 3 is a quite old topic. Nevertheless, we didn't manage fully to get it on the road, and this is the foundation. The openSUSE project is now 15 years old, and we're partly seen as the cheap development branch of SUSE. Maybe a little bit negative that way, but it starts with the naming, that we are very similar named. I mean, in between, most people understand there is a difference between openSUSE and SUSE, and they accept or manage in between the right writing, so that we're not with capitals, we're not with periods in between and something like that. But nevertheless, a little bit more independence is beneficial, because we could easier manage, for example, to get sponsorship from external partners, but as well to sponsor outside communities. At the moment, everything has to run via the accounts of SUSE, which is, as I just learned, and I had a chat with Neal about that, similar to the Fedora project. They have a similar setup, but I don't know why, but obviously they are not suffering from this sponsorship thing. And I don't know whether this is due to the fact that they're based in the US and we're in Europe. We will follow up on that. So, but to make the long story short, push towards a legal structure, which may be a foundation if we get the money, if we get the funding, or a different one like an eingetragener Verein, if it is a German-based charitable organization, where we need much less money and much less people to get it on the road. But here I trust basically the SUSE employees on the board, mainly our chairman Gerald, that he figures out the right timing to talk to SUSE again on that. Yeah, that's it basically. Thank you.
Excellent. So there is another question in the chat. Vince, how about we pick
what about Gertjan?
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Gertjan, we don't hear you.
You're muted. Yeah.
You're still muted.
Ah, new headphone, maybe better.
And now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. When the question was about the 3 most important things.
Yes.
I think all the candidates are about at the same level on this. I have spoken to all of them apart from Nathan. But I think it all starts with proper communication, and proper communication to me includes that you behave decently and respectfully towards each other. And this is a trend. Not doing this is something that I see everywhere. The naming and shaming, blaming on Twitter. It's the sink of how you deal with somebody, as we say it in the Netherlands. I don't want that. We have a reputation that is still there to be a very friendly community, to make contributing easy, because every contributor is welcome. And given the reactions and the direct messages I got from some people, there's a tendency where that gets lost. and I really hate that. I think that's where it starts. We need to do something about that, and the first actions have already been taken by the current board. Some posts on the mailing lists, but even calling out to be more friendly and not use naming, shaming, etc., blaming, etc., is enough to get another shitstorm towards the people who posted that, where they have nothing but good intentions. I really want to see that gone, and I think it's the task of the board to play a leading role in that. A second thing is the relationship with SUSE. There is no way that anyone can ignore the symbiotic relationship that we have. I mean, our code base from Leap is basically Flea. Tumbleweed is basically the development project for SUSE. It's not our development project, it's our rolling release. But we have to deal with that, because changing it would be really bad for both SUSE and openSUSE. So, getting to the third point, which is closely connected, the foundation. Yes, I want a foundation, or some IV, Dutch stichting, I don't care what, as long as we have some legal entity where we can receive money, can spend money. But all this, I want it, and I would like to see it happen, but not at the cost of breaking the relationship with SUSE. I wouldn't want to see that. So I think with all three combined, that's what we have to go for. Better communication. Keep our relationship with SUSE and improve it instead of telling them what they are doing wrong or etc.
So I think I'll take this one first again, because I tend to spend my time in a number of Linux distribution communities and this sort of thing. I want to say that the situation with CentOS right now is unfortunate. I've worked, like, it was kind of a bombshell even to me when it happened. But, you know, having talked to many of my friends who work in the CentOS project, many of the folks who've been working very hard on this sort of thing, you know, the aim for what's going on in CentOS with CentOS Stream is what we've done with openSUSE Leap. They are turning Red Hat Enterprise Linux into an openly developed platform that the community can contribute to and have an impact on. And that's something to be applauded. And that is something that it is good for enterprise Linux platforms, or even any Linux platform in general. And what I have been disappointed at is how we as a community have been, you know, taking pot shots at them for trying to do what we already did. And I was really not happy about that, because a lot of the inspiration for CentOS Stream came from openSUSE Leap. I've had discussions with a lot of folks at Red Hat and in the CentOS project and in Fedora about the fact that openSUSE has successfully executed on an openly developed SUSE Linux Enterprise platform to the benefit of both SUSE's customers and the greater openSUSE community. And that I wanted to see something like this on the Red Hat side, and to take openSUSE as the model for how to do this. And they're doing the best that they can with the constraints that they've got. Insofar as, you know, the future of openSUSE among other distributions and how we're supposed to, position ourselves, we should. This comes back to what I was saying earlier about we should have, a clear message, a clear story of what makes openSUSE great, and we can use that story and refine it with clear points relevant to situations and stuff, to have classy and aggressive marketing to make people sit up and think about openSUSE and consider it as a platform and consider contributing. Because openSUSE is not just a platform for developers. It's also a platform for users. It's a platform for enterprises, for individuals, and everyone in between. And I believe if we do this right, if we aim high and be aggressive in the right ways, like poking fun a little bit is probably fine. Doing, talking about, but taking pot shots is not. And we're all friends. And I hope people in here know that Red Hat has been a supporter of the openSUSE community for at least 4 years now. They've sponsored, through the Fedora project, the openSUSE conference every year for several years now. And there's a lot of work done by Red Hat engineers and SUSE engineers and the openSUSE community folks with the Fedora folks, that it would be a shame if we destroyed that bond. Because in a very real way, both of us together are rising the tide, we're for floating all the boats in the Linux ecosystem. We can't do it alone. We can't do everything ourselves. But we still have a place, and we still have a position that we can make. We just have to make that clear what we are, and start talking about it, and start, being visible. Like, the biggest problem openSUSE has isn't that our distribution's great. It's the fact that we have no visibility. People don't talk about us because they don't have anything to talk about. And that's what we have to fix. So, I'm reasonably confident openSUSE is here to stay. But I am not confident right now, as things currently stand, that people know openSUSE is here to stay. We have to change that. And that's just not on me and not just on the board, but it's on everyone to make it much easier for all of us to convey what is openSUSE and why.
Not
Maybe I take the second shot. Neal, you're of course much more in the details than we are, and I think what you've already said, there is basically nothing to add. Red Hat is clearly the much larger fish in the pool compared to SUSE or to openSUSE, and yes, there has been a good relation, especially between Fedora and openSUSE. We're sponsoring the conferences in both directions, and I think this is definitely something that we should keep. To come back to Sarah's original question, I think all the free software project, the free software communities should be friends, and for the most part are friends. And this is definitely something that we must work on to survive towards these commercial spyware products that you mostly get pre-installed on the hardware that you buy, right? There was a little bit unlucky communication going on. I saw a couple of threads during the last days, which I have to admit I didn't follow completely for timely matters. But a little bit, in German we say freundschaftliches Necken, so that we cheat a little bit with each other. That is okay, but it shouldn't be discouraging or how to say, it shouldn't give a negative feeling about whatever's happening. Okay, thanks.
I agree there, and I phrase it even more stronger. If we don't get rid of this attitude that it's us versus all the others, that's the real danger that we have. It is not them versus us or us versus them. We're all open source projects, and I hate this idea of disqualifying other distros for their decisions. I've seen it in openSUSE itself so many times that something was completely disqualified. I remembered even the introduction of System D, what that caused. And it's not necessary. If you have the attitude that this is all to improve the situation for everybody, then it's different. It doesn't have to be like that. We don't need Red Hat to make changes to CentOS to put our profile out. We don't need that. I hope I'm clear in what I mean. But it's something I'm really concerned about. The constant struggle of opinions, where many opinions are based on personal taste and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I will go next. I mean, who was first? Okay, no problem. No.
It doesn't matter, but I'll go quick. I'll be quick. I mean, there's nothing that really Neal that I can add much to Neal, other than saying like I didn't really follow the whole CentOS change very closely because it's not something I follow very closely, but I do agree that there's a way of approaching it in a tasteful way. Like someone decided that CentOS they want to shift their position, right? They want to move away from the binary rebuilds of Red Hat or whatever it is. So, and I can understand why people might be upset by that. And I think the best way I think to approach a situation is not saying oh, shame on you ever, because that's their choice to do what they want to do with their organization. So let them fly, fly little bird, let them fly. So I think the best thing to say is, hey, here's what we have to offer. If this fits you, great. And then to just iterate like our messaging of saying this is what makes openSUSE a good choice. Not to try and snag people from CentOS or anything else, but just to say, hey, here's an option. Let's and just to iterate what our key messaging is of why to choose openSUSE Leap. I mean, it's a great story, and I know there's a sysadmin friend of mine. He's my Italian friend that lives in Taiwan, Mauro Gaspari, and he was telling me how the what makes openSUSE Leap great for him is he can the story about it's compatible, the compatibility with SLE, and so you can move someone from openSUSE to SLE, if it makes sense. And I think that message, and that's for people who do these I know they call DevOps. I don't know. I'm not in that area, but people who manage servers and manage infrastructure, that is an important story to tell. Just tell the story. Just say why it's great. You don't have to say anything negative about anybody else. Just say why this is great. And I think if we just kind of always approach everything from a positive story to tell, and just keep telling positive stories. Because I think one of the reasons someone says, why is openSUSE not in the conversation? Well, what negative things are there really to talk about? I mean, there was that little thing that happened earlier this year, but really, like, there's really not a negative story to tell. We don't have people outrage in the openSUSE community for the most part, and that's a good thing, and we should keep it that way. But let's just have some more positive stories to tell, and maybe map out these are the things we want to talk about over the course of a year, and just build a branding message around that. One of the things that if I were on the board, I mean, I could always throw suggestions out there. I don't have to be on the board to do this, but is to just help enforce those command messages, those key messages, so that people can hear what is, build this story, this tapestry of all that's great about openSUSE, because there's so many aspects of it, and just bring it back to what the core key messages of what makes openSUSE great. And so that's kind of where I'm going to leave that.
Look, I think everyone already said most of the things that I actually to say, and I agree with everything that has been said so far. One thing that I maybe want to add is that maybe the way we communicate should be different from what has been done. Not trying to single anyone out, but I think some tweets that I've seen were a bit in poor taste, and many people seem to agree. We tend to forget maybe that openSUSE is not to snatch every customer or every single from anyone else, but we are a community, and as such, I think we can show maybe a little bit more class in the way we do things. And it has been said by others, by Nate especially just now, we should really try not to get more users by dissing other projects, but instead we should do it by focusing on what's good about what we do, and try to explain that I'm not a CentOS user, so I'm not exactly sure or not, but maybe try to focus on the technologies that openSUSE Leap has to offer. And one of them that comes to mind to me right now, it's been said, it's a Snapper, for example, in Btrfs. So that's really something that can help people not breaking the systems, and when they do, they can easily fix it with basically just a command, or not even that, but through the bootloader. So I think we should really emphasize a lot more the positive messages, of course, and keep in mind that we are a community, and as a community, we are friends with other communities, right? So we should try to keep that in mind, and not focus too much about like stealing customers that are leaving CentOS for whatever reason, and while we do that, make other projects look bad. Yeah, that's about it.
Mm-hmm. No one has popped yet, so
Nobody has anything else to ask, or is it just or what?
I think the answers were pretty rich, and people need to digest a little bit.
Oh, I see. We gave them a whole cheesecake, and it's taking them some time to.
No, they fell asleep.
Or maybe they were typing and you just answered the question before they were done, so you ruined their day now.
So, speaking of cheesecake, one of my favorite things to do this time of year are pumpkin cheesecakes. I know this is totally not on topic, but
I don't care. I like cheesecake.
I don't know, like, So I like making pumpkin cheesecake. It's one of my favorite things. And I have a garden this year. Now it's winter time, so obviously everything's dead. But so I use my own pumpkins, and I bake them down and everything else. But I keep all my recipes on my kitchen command center, which runs openSUSE Leap. It's a touchscreen.
You made it
relevant. I want to say that. Yes, I want to say that in the last 2 years, some of the development in KDE has been so awesome for touchscreen interface.
Oh yeah,
Firefox needs some work, but it's so great because like, no, that's another thing. But I'll still use Firefox. I don't care, even if it's clunky. Anyway, but little things like, so I have I used to work for a corporation called Whirlpool, the appliance manufacturer. They let me go, but they have these cool boxes. And and so I have this above my refrigerator. So my openSUSE Leap machine connects to this. So while I'm baking or cooking or whatever, I have an awesome audio system that I connect to Bluetooth, which is nice now because all those little widgets now all work with touch, and it's just been such a great experience. And I wish everybody had a kitchen command center running openSUSE Leap. Like, you know, it was like once said, the American dream. There's a car in every garage. There should be in every house a command center in your kitchen running openSUSE Leap. That would be, you know, if I were running for president, that's what I would say.
Does it make good coffee? That's the most important.
It's the only
You know
part
what?
of my house that is not automated. There is one. No, the bathroom is the same, but there are two places in the house where I don't have the automation around me, and I really love that.
You can employ somebody.
I have my recipes on small notes like this. I can tell you, it's analog as hell, but it works.
I will say, Nate, I want your cheesecakes. I want it when the next time you make them, you have to come up here and you have to give me some because I want to try this.
It's not fair for us European.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be like a 6 to 8 hour drive for him anyway. So like,
that's true. Well, Neal, you're not that far away. You're invited for Christmas if you want to make the trip. I didn't know what
this year.
I guess the US won't let us in this year.
I mean, we're not allowed to leave the country in most cases anyway. So,
I think that's a good thing. I think they should keep Americans contained. We've seen for 4 years what they're capable of.
Oh,
Actually, just noticed I'm completely old style. My kitchen command center is the cat. She tells me exactly when I have to enter the kitchen to
You know, I have the same thing.
Well, I mean,
one model is it?
I don't have my house is a little bit old school, mostly out of laziness, but also because up until this year I didn't spend a whole lot of time in it, so I don't have automation and stuff. But you know, probably one of those things that I'll wind up doing if I'm stuck in here for too much longer is, well, I'm here all the time. I might as well do something interesting in it.
I asked my wife to make me a sandwich. There's also automation.
So, yeah, Vince, I don't know if you want to follow up on that, but I mean, with Vince, we've curated a short list of questions, and I mean, we've touched on some of them already, but I don't know if Vince, you wanted to pick from that pool of questions, because otherwise I have, yeah, sure. Perhaps, I mean, if I can allow myself, we touched upon the subject of a foundation, but perhaps not everyone from the audience is familiar with the current situation. So if you guys want to elaborate on what the current situation is and what are the next milestones to look forward to, perhaps that's a good follow-up. So anyone, feel free to pick up the slate.
I think the current status could be best explained by Axel. He's on the board. And
Yeah.
I was on the board for 4 years, and the whole foundation thing has played over the years. But it's really tough material to deal with. We are all not lawyers, and there's a lot of things that come to it, and a lot of things change due to changes in the EU. So I think the best would be that Axel tells us what the current status is, and I would need that anyway to allow myself to have any opinion or thoughts about directions.
Yeah, and before Axel kind of starts here, I want to, just so that nobody asks me stuff about this, because I don't know that much about what's going on either. But the main thing, my experience with foundations and stuff like that is more in the organizational side rather than the legal structure side. Obviously, the two are to some degree intertwined. But from the legal perspective, I'm mostly familiar with American 501c3 and 501c6 organizations, as opposed to, EVs or Stiftungen for German nonprofits and stuff like that. And while there's some analogs, it's not completely equivalent. And my perspective here is that I suspect that since we drew up the plans, what I think was like 2-3 years ago, when the board presented it last year, there's been significant changes in how things work that we need to, like, I hope we don't have to go completely back to the drawing board, but we might have to, because there's also the information that, as Axel brought up, Fedora is doing certain things. They're in a similar structure to us, and they're not suffering in the same way we are. So there might actually be like organizational issues we need to deal with up front before we pursue, some of this other stuff to try to mitigate that or whatever. Like, I don't know. And it's like, I don't have enough information, and I don't think most of us have enough information to say one way or the other about what the current state is. But then, Axel, you're actually on the board, and I think you've taken a fairly strong interest in this, so you might have some more clarity to give.
Yeah. So first of all, the situation between Fedora and openSUSE, my feeling is currently, without being in the depth at the moment, that it's more pointing to the legislation we are both in. You are based in the US, we are based in Germany. And especially over the last years, the tax authorities have increased the rules that you have to follow if you're an EV, an eingetragener Verein, a kind of charitable organization, or whether you're a foundation. In both areas, you have to be much more strict compared to the years before, which adds an additional organizational overhead to both of the things. But let me go back one step. We had a longer discussion which of the two legal forms are potentially more beneficial to openSUSE. So if you want to fund an EV, you just need 7 people. You go to the local court and say, hey, we want to found a charitable organization. And they do a certain proof of papers and something like that. And as soon as you have the status, you can open an account for this charitable organization, and you can receive donations, can give a tax exempt for the donators, and you can start your work in the sense of this organization. If you do the same with a foundation, you need at least, I think in the smallest form, around 50k euro funding, but the more common is at the moment to have 100k funding. We learned at this from the Document Foundation, but we have to bear in mind that the Document Foundation and the LibreOffice project is a completely different community as we are, because the user base is much larger. I mean, everybody of us is probably using LibreOffice as their office typewriter and spreadsheet calculation thing. But beside the openSUSE world, millions of Windows and Mac OS users are using this as well. So they have a much larger community, and they could raise this money just by funding. My personal feeling is if we do community funding on the foundation that money that we need, we will probably not succeed. So the idea was to ask SUSE about the funding and maybe about 1 or 2 full-time equivalents, persons to work on the foundation. So Gerald is our CTO. He's the chairman of openSUSE. And I guess he has a very good feeling when we could approach SUSE management with that and when not. When we had the openSUSE conference last year in Nuremberg, we had the face-to-face meetings 2 days before, and we were also talking to the head of engineering, and the perception in general was positive about that. But since then, really much have changed. They have not only a new CIO, they've also bought Rancher, and they are exchanging basically the whole management. So in this area, the dust has to settle a little bit, and I think then we can talk to SUSE about that again. We may also raise the question again, is the EV not secure enough for us? Because if you one of the main arguments why we use a foundation is if you have set up a foundation with a certain focus, then this is more or less carved in stone. In theory, in an EV, you can go with 2/3 or 75% majority and say, oh, we want to move away from free software community to, what do I know, an art shop or whatever.
Lawnmowers.
Sorry?
Lawnmowers.
Lawnmowers. We are producing lawnmowers. Good idea. And we are test driving them around Groningen in the Netherlands because they have so much weed.
Well, we run them through open QA first, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, just making sure. Then I'm good with that.
So this is a legally possible approach, but I think it's more hypothetical because I have, if I look around, about many sports clubs, for example, are organized in that way, many charitable organizations. I can hardly remember a single one where they changed the approach so dramatically. So bottom line, situation is on hold at the moment. We are waiting for the dust within the SUSE organization to settle. And once this has happened, we are approaching SUSE again for a funding. Does it explain or?
Yeah, no. And
yes.
And with that explanation, I mean, I can even give a tiny bit of color here about even my opinion about legal structure. You know, all quotes, not a lawyer. I don't trust me for stuff. But yeah, the idea of whether we want to have a structure in which it becomes difficult for us to pivot, you know, in terms of like our stated purpose and things like that as a nonprofit, is interesting because I didn't realize that this was a factor in which what we were trying to decide for the legal structure. Because for me in the United States, 501c3s and 501c4s and 501c6s, it's relatively difficult for you to change your stated purpose once you're incorporated that way, provided that your constitutional structure for your governing bylaws make this difficult. It is extremely difficult for you to change what your purpose is, and you usually have to reincorporate or invalidate or like prove that you are still worthy of being nonprofit if you decide to change your stated purpose. So like I didn't realize that in Germany that there is an actual possibility of doing that without the whole like dumpster fire of reincorporating and that sort of thing. In the United States, that's not a thing you can do easily. Like you have to really justify to external authorities why you should keep your nonprofit status if you're changing your purpose from what you originally incorporated in. And most of the time you lose.
If the new purpose is within a charitable area as well, I think then it's fine, right?
In the United States, if it's a different purpose, if it's in a different focus than what it was before, because each different focus, like for sciences, for humanitarian, they're actually different types of charity in the United States organizational legal code. So again, I don't know the full details of it, but basically, if you change the sector in which you're doing your purpose, like you said, if we're going from developing free software for the benefit of the public to lawnmowers, making better lawnmowers for the public, like, it is science, but it is also not the same space, and the IRS would go after you for doing something stupid, and you might actually lose your nonprofit status for such a hard pivot unless you can justify it really strongly to them. Yeah. So I guess in the United States, this is not something that's ever occurred to me, because in the United States, this is not an issue, because it actually happened enough times that, organizations tried to pivot, that there are rules now in place that make it extremely difficult for organizations to pivot like that. So while it is easier for funding and comfortable for organizational structures, like, you can be a lot more flexible about it because, again, it only defines a tax entity, and you define governance and bylaws and stuff for how you want to technically operate. It's not a case in which, like, actually pivoting or changing or whatever is all that easy, because as soon as you've incorporated with that structure, everything is audited. You're audited against that structure. So you're audited with your bylaws, you're audited with your rules, you're audited with your income. And there are very specific guidelines there about how, funding is supposed to work, how membership is supposed to work relative to your governance. And so that is sort of that's sort of the way I tend to view, us having a foundation. That's why when people were asking me questions on the list, I said, the most important thing for us is we need to figure out a way to get funding, because that is the number one reason that I see nonprofits get dissolved, is that they become insolvent. And if you also, another way is that if you have too much money, you can't have too much money, because if you have too much money, you also get dissolved because you have turned a profit. And so these are all things that I have to think about, in that context. And I didn't realize that that there was an additional factor that you had been thinking about. So, like, to me, it was just,
No, it's true. I mean, not for profit is also a good reason in Germany. So as an EV, you can make a certain amount of profit, but it has to be spent for the non-profit reason. And as I said, this became pretty complicated in the last years. But if I listen to you, it seems to be even worse in the US.
Well, it's actually easier to prove your nonprofit status and maintain it as long as your purpose is clear and you can demonstrate that. Because demonstrating that is relatively easy. The problem that a lot of free software organizations have is that people pump too much money in, and then the organization doesn't know how to spend it. Like, the GNOME Foundation is struggling to spend money, and that is turning into a problem. That is the biggest issue.
You can help with that. No problem.
I mean, it's a stupid problem to have. It's a stupid problem to have, but, like, when the WADEC was happening earlier this year, like, in their State of the GNOME Foundation session, they said their number one problem right now is they still are holding too much cash. And they've managed to justify it with the IRS because they're saying, like, exceptional circumstances and stuff like that. Like, coronavirus has made it very hard to spend money. It is making it very, very hard to spend money. But this is an ongoing concern. I am pretty sure in most regions of the world, if you are a non-for-profit, you need to not be making a profit in some way, demonstrating that you are spending the money you are taking in to serve your purpose. It is a lot more lax in the United States to define, like, how you're spending that money to fit your purpose. You more or less just have to say, here's what it does, here's the benefit it does, and here's how the community, how our purpose is fulfilled by it. But if you're not spending enough money, then you have to tell the IRS why. And if you can't prove it, then they will take away your not-for-profit status, and then you have to pay taxes on it, and that will suck. Well, I mean, you have to pay taxes, but you have to pay a lot more taxes because you're now a regular C Corp. And someone in the chat mentioned the National Rifle Association in New York just lost their non-for-profit status because they were taking so much money and they were spending it for things that weren't for their purpose. And it was demonstrated that they weren't following the focus of what the point of the National Rifle Association was. And so this is the sort of thing. It's like, I feel like following our purpose in openSUSE is going to be super easy as long as we figure out what that is. And I think that's easy enough to define. We're supporting the openSUSE community. We are trying to, promote and expand free software for the benefit of the public. That's a super easy thing to define. And we are a complicated enough organization that we can spend money. That part should not be hard. But if the underlying question is, can we guarantee to our users in our greater community that we are going to maintain that purpose and follow that into the future, then we should probably have a greater discussion about what type of organizational structure or legal structure we want to be under. And I don't particularly know whether this matters too much or not, but SUSE is a U.S. entity for legal purposes. Their ultimate parent organization is SUSE LLC, which may have implications for us if we want to set up a public-private partnership in which everyone benefits from this. And I don't know. Again, I have no idea. These are all things that that come to me as you were talking about this. So
yeah, it's also not really a kind of public-private partnership, because this is normally with a governmental part in it. But
in the US,
think
it's
we're leaving
defined
a little bit
bit
the focus on the question on what the status is, and I see there is another question coming up. Or is there anything that you want to know about foundation and status at the moment? I'm happy to answer, but I think it was already said everything basically. Adrian, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. So if anybody from the candidates wants to add something on the topic of the foundation?
I think Axel probably said everything that had to be said. I don't have anything personal because I'm not very familiar with the subject. It's something that I need to educate myself, so I would probably pass on this.
I tried educating myself over the last couple of years by talking to Dutch lawyers. What options do we have? And instead of this giving me a clear picture, this only became more confusing about all the rules. I know that, for example, the 50K or the 100K for the Dutch equivalent of a stichting, it's not a requirement. You can do that without any costs. The only thing is that you have to declare stuff and have it verified by a lawyer. And as soon as the lawyer signs it, you're in business and you can have a bank account, etc. The thing is that if you do it in the foundation bit, the goals of the foundation are harder to change. You need 75% of the board of directors or whatever. And if you make it something like an EV in Germany, it's the same. You can change from a football club to selling or promoting lawnmowers, promoting COVID-19 vaccines, whatever. So that's about the same as it is in Germany, which is quite logic. But the thing is that all these rules are constantly on the move, and to get a clear picture and be sure what you decide for the next couple of years or next 5 years, that's almost impossible.
So still on the topic of the foundation. Otherwise, there is another question which is waiting for us to pick it up. It's about visibility. So are we okay with the foundation?
I think so.
So the question is about visibility. So we've touched this topic already, but I think the question is worth considering. So the question is, what will be done for community outreach, like getting support for the community to have more events to educate about the openSUSE project? I remember a DataCon LA trying to get people to come out and do talks about openSUSE and big data. What can we do about this, about such initiatives?
I think it's a good thing to have somebody out everywhere where these events happen. But we're all volunteers. We all have our jobs, our families. We all have to deal with all the COVID-19 measures. So the regular meetings are either done online or just cancelled. I think it's really hard to say something decent about this that will hold in a couple of months.
Yeah. It's a question about motivation of community members. And yeah, I mean, what can you do there? You can ask. You can demonstrate the benefits, the importance of the meeting, or whatever, but you can hardly externally motivate somebody to do something. So
agreed. Then we would have to work with bonuses or something like that. You know, pay people for their travel expenses, their staying expenses, and we already do that by the TSP.
Yeah.
But then we would have to move on to paying them 25 euros or $25 for just doing that. I don't think we need to go that way.
I think
it would make it more attractive for a lot of people, but I don't think it's the way to go.
Okay, so I think we can. One way of maybe opening up this question is to consider what priorities we should look at in terms of improving our visibility. Should we improve our visibility for technical-minded people or for not technical-minded people? What value can we bring to the table for these two groups? I think is the spirit of the question.
Keep it as broad as we can. We can't exist by only having developers or packagers or contributors. We need users as well, and we need the users to be positive about what we produce for them. But we also need them to be positive about the atmosphere in the community and about how easy it is to step in and contribute, join parts of our community. I think that's what makes you visible. A friendly face. We don't have to brag about things. We can be proud about things. We don't have to brag about things by disqualifying or telling the world that we are better than anything else. I don't believe in that strategy.
You know, there are a lot of things I don't know about as far as, you know, conferences. I've never been to a Linux conference because I'm one of those naturally socially distanced type people all my life. But the one of the things that I think that can be done, and it wouldn't really take a lot, you know, work or funding or whatever else, but I think just showing enthusiasm and excitement. I know that, like, when I talk to people about openSUSE, I'm always enthusiastic because it's great. And so, and then I get people who message me and ask me questions, or I help them troubleshoot things and whatnot. So I think just being public, however that suits you. You know, I have my cubiclenate.com site where I basically blather about openSUSE things, and other stuff too. But but just being excited, and, you know, going into like the different communities and just being there and being helpful and so forth. Like there's the Big Daddy Linux live community I'm a part of, and I'm kind of the openSUSE guy, you know, when people have issues, and you know, when something exciting happens in openSUSE, you know, news.opensuse.org has, you know, stuff, you know, I talk about it, and, you know, I don't want to push it, you know, I don't want to force feed it down their throats, but I do want to be like, hey, this is cool, you know, or whatever, or, you know, I'm building a new computer and guess what I'm putting on it? Can you guess? openSUSE. Anyway, and so just little things like that. You know, if you're on fire, sometimes people will just show up to watch you burn. I mean, not in the nicest way, but I'm just saying that is a thing. And if you're just on fire about something, you're just excited, you know, that often will drive the traffic. Why is he so excited about openSUSE? Because I can break it and get away with it, you know, or whatever it might be, and just tell that story, you know. You know, honestly, I got to say one thing. So I've been using openSUSE regularly now for about 10 years. It's been my #1 distribution. And one thing that I can always say about the forum is and I don't spend enough time on there as of late, but it's always friendly. Well, always, but I mean like 90% or better, 95%. It's always friendly. You know, if I have a problem, people will help you through the problem. I mean, you got to step back a little bit and say, you know, no community is perfect. You know, every community's got its clown, right? Every community is going to have its, you know, bad apple. It just happens, every bushel. And so, but if you tell the story, if you look at it holistically and you look at like, how are people in the openSUSE community? Not perfect. I'm not saying perfect, but they're largely super helpful. I mean, it's a great community. And I think you can be excited about that. You know, you can be excited about that. Like, I know, I'm going to say it wrong, but Knurft? Did I say Knurft?
Yeah.
You have helped me so many times on the forums over the years, and I've never seen your face before today. And, you know, and so I appreciate that. I mean, like, because, you know, I bang my head against the walls numerous times. And, you know, even like the bug reporting, you know, I'm not necessarily the best bug reporter guy. I do whenever I have issues, I do them. But, like, you know, people in the community, they help you walk through those bug reports to get them, you know, to get the information they need. I mean, there's so many just really neat little stories, really neat little nuggets about how great the community is. I'm not saying that the others are not, but this is a very welcoming community. I think maybe an area where I think might maybe there could be an area of improvement in that is sometimes like Alan Pope. He's like a developer advocate, and he really pulls people in and encourages people. There's probably some of that needs to be done in openSUSE more. And again, this is where I lack in technical knowledge, but, you know, but just like pulling people in and encouraging them, saying, hey, well, this is how you use OBS. This is how you can build your packages. This is how you can do whatever, you know, just some of that, you know, to kind of draw people in. And when you have that excitement and you're out there and talking about it, you're just going to draw people naturally. If they're a little bit, let's say the technical abilities, then you can bring them up, and then you can also, which neat there is, you can also then identify areas where this is a rough spot for people. This is how we can help them over that, or maybe this is how we can improve the product or improve the onboarding to make it easier. But just to sum up, I think just being excited about all the good things to talk about with openSUSE, like all the different little nuggets of just really neat things that you can do. I mean, I got to say, the XFCE port of or build of openSUSE is fantastic. It's actually my favorite now of XFCE. I have it on 3 different systems. tumbleweed systems. And I think that that's a story that needs to be told some more. On board member or not, I think that there. I don't know if you have a blog or whatnot, but there's some stories that you need to tell about XFCE tumbleweed. Anyway, I got these 12-year-old netbooks that are basically garbage, but they run so awesome with XFCE. I tried Plasma, and it's some things that Plasma and the GPU, and it just causes problems. But anyway, and it's great. And so it's like, these are stories that we can tell, and there's excitement there. I mean, like MX Linux has got a great XFCE, but I think that the tumbleweed one, as in the last year or so, let's say maybe 18 months, has really just shined up and just looks just fantastic. And so, you get excited about these great stories. You don't have to go out and hunt for people. They're going to find you because of your excitement. So I say, light yourself on fire. Not figuratively.
Can we not have immolation involved in this?
Right. Not that. I don't mean that. But I'm just saying, just be excited. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
That's my thought.
I think you're right. Be excited. On the local meetings we had, I've always found that there was a couple of guys sitting there, just a bunch of stickers, not taking any initiative. And for example, Ben Henderson and me were there, and we did actual troubleshooting on site. Sometimes I even missed a talk just to help somebody out. And I think these small things, if everybody would have an attitude, okay, let's go out there and help each other, that would make us very visible on the long term, in the sense that this reputation of being helpful, being friendly, it will last. And just some initiative, a one-time action, like for example, the attempt to revive some marketing. There's a lot of enthusiasts going in there, and then suddenly it just stops. And it was a huge attempt, but somehow it stopped. And that's a shame. I think more and more, I think that's the small things. I mean, I know what the guys at MX Linux did when trying to get themselves higher on DistroWatch. Yeah, you write a script that generates the clicks on DistroWatch, and off you go. I don't want us doing that. We don't need that. The quality, in the sense of the quality of the distros, the quality of our infrastructure, and the quality of our community, that should be the main things, and not some kind of promotional chit chat.
So Ben wanted to say something?
Yes. Well, I noticed I'm a teacher in the Netherlands, and I tried the last 10 to 15 years to get openSUSE on schools. But on the one or the other way, there's always the same with IT education. Is always Microsoft. There's not too much PR for openSUSE. I tried it on school for a year, and they were very enthusiastic. They're very glad with me to give Linux on as lessons. But after a year, they say, okay, it's not for us, because we go back to Microsoft. And that's no problem, because it's also a good software, but there's still too much. I hear too much that people are saying from Linux, what is it? And when you show them, they're always glad and are always enthusiastic for to use it. But a year later, it's gone, and because they are always. I know I work a year with Gabor from SUSE in Alphen aan de Rijn. We tried it on a on school, and the information was perfect. The PR was perfect, but still it doesn't come over to the rest of the teachers to try it. It's always the easy way is we always use Microsoft. Why will we use something else? It's also with Apple. They don't use Apple. Why not? Yeah, it's too difficult. What is the problem with the public relations?
What you're used.
Oof.
Wants to? Maurizio?
Oh. No, it's oh, there we go. It's whatever it was echoing is gone.
What was it?
I have no idea.
Never mind.
But it stopped.
I just can I just briefly add on to the answer the question. Are we still on that question, or we moved on? I'm sorry, but
no, we're still on the question.
I don't want to repeat myself because I think I said some of it already earlier. I think one way to increase visibility is two things. I think other than the users, but in order to get users, you need people to talk about it, right? One of them is to have people that have some weight from the community, from the openSUSE community, to actually go and talk about it, whether it's like during fairs, which is already being done, but also like online. I think, Nate, you brought up the example of Poppy, what he does for Ubuntu.
We've lost you.
Frozen.
Maurizio, we lost you.
Maurizio like that.
Well, I guess I'll say something until since I don't know if he's gonna. Oh, you're back. Never mind.
About it, the more they will use it, and the more people that.
Well, I guess I'll say kind of a quick thing to add on top of Maurizio and.
Sorry, did you hear me, or I just like completely went nuts?
You were gone.
I was just talking to myself, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Just to sum it up, to make sure that you got the points. Were like two things for me that are important in order to get more users is to start with people of influence within the community to talk about what we do, and the second thing is developers outside our distributions that to start, tell them what we do and then get them to actually be sort of like the testimonies of our technologies, right? So to sum it up, that's what I wanted to say.
Sounds good. So I want to kind of add on top of Knurft and Maurizio about what they've said about broadening the user base and stuff. Yeah, I think if I look at the landscape and I look at what others are doing, something that we miss as, I want to say we're a big three distribution, between the Red Hat family, the Ubuntu family, and the SUSE family. I think I think it's fair to say we are the three heavyweights, even if not everyone.
Don't forget Debian.
But we have better cookies.
We have better cookies. But okay, so 4. I'll add Debian to the mix. But we're still one of those heavyweights. But one thing that I see us missing in our strategy for advocacy and broadening our user base and such is, it's great that Tuxedo Computers, Vince, is doing the great work of putting openSUSE on those laptops.
Although it's not their first preference. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna try to not be too twitchy about that, but yes, I'm a little annoyed that their main OS isn't openSUSE either.
And although they ship laptops with a fingerprint reader, that is not supported by Linux.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, he's gonna fix it.
Yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I look at the larger strategy that the others are employing, and we see Sputnik and with Canonical with Dell, and we see the Lenovo program Linux Edition family with Red Hat, and we have a long and fruitful partnership, through SUSE, with Hewlett Packard and Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and I feel like it's that we should maybe consider trying to see if those connections are still alive and talk to them about, maybe can we do some community cooperation here to get a Linux edition of one or two of their more popular laptop lines, working with openSUSE preloaded on it and doing that whole thing, because between Leap and Tumbleweed, we can cover both desktops and servers, and offering community edition whatevers for those platforms, I think is a very strong strategy for being able to to make a splash in a very big way. And I think with the way that we're set up as a community, with the technology that we have, with the differentiating stuff that we've got, there is no reason that we wouldn't be able to do that. It's just a question of, do we have the necessary connections to open that conversation? Now, I don't particularly, but I assume somebody does within our community, and that we could have that conversation to start doing something there. And that would, I think, really start helping us, become more notable, more noticed, and much more interesting from the larger Linux community perspective. Because preloaded Linux is way easier than having to go through and install it.
Absolutely. It's good that Lenovo sells PC with pre-installed Fedora. My experience in Germany was I was not able to buy a Lenovo laptop without an operating system officially.
Yeah. Oh, so, by the way, that was just fixed for the Fedora edition for Europe last week, which is cool. Okay. So they did just make that Linux laptops available in Germany, I think last week or the week before.
Yeah, just somebody tells or just posts a link about Slimbooks. Yes, they are nice as well, but sorry, I've been using a trackpoint for 25 plus years. Don't get around with these touchpads, to be honestly. Yeah. And I want a trackpoint, full stop.
Axel, come on.
I have an openSUSE mouse. I can use it every now and then, but nevertheless, when you're really used to it,
even people our age can change.
I tried, my friend. I tried hard, but I found out it's more ergonomic to use the trackpoint. But that's a different story. My feeling is still, as long as a Windows and a Mac operating system is pre-installed without choice of the user and without making clear to them you're getting a proprietary product which spies on you, versus a free software product that respects your user freedom and your user rights, and potentially they see the real price for a Windows or a Mac license, the people will not change. They just take what they get pre-installed and that's it, full stop. So we had this Open Letter EU initiative where we asked a question via a member of the European Parliament, how they see it. And the answer was, as you could expect it from politicians, very soft and very, very weak. So I wrote a summary about that and posted that into this Open Letter EU mailing list. And there is some other activity that I'm considering currently, but bear with me, but at the moment I will not disclose details on that. But the target should be to really bring, to have computers pre-installed generally with a free software system as the first choice. But here we really need political support and maybe as well a court trial. And I just got aware of an interesting non-government organization in Austria, which may be able to help us there.
I think a good first step would be that people, when they order a laptop or a desktop computer, that they get the choice. I want this pre-installed. I want that pre-installed. I want nothing pre-installed.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
Today we are all paying the big guys when we buy laptops, and for me that was one of the reasons to buy the Tuxedo, just to get rid of that idea that it comes with Windows, and the first thing I do with Windows, the only thing I do with Windows, is remove it. But yet I have paid because they have paid.
Yeah, that's the point, and they are not refunding you. And
No.
there was a court trial that went up to the European court about a French customer who said, look, this Sony laptop in this case comes with Windows pre-installed. I'm not using it. I want my money back for it. And the European court had to judge whether this was an unfair practice to have an operating system pre-installed. And surprisingly, they came to the conclusion that it is not an unfair practice. So having a computer sold with a pre-installed system is legally correct. But considering the fact that this was a case from 2008 or 2009, then the problems about privacy that we're having today were not as big as they are today. And I think under this light, this has to be reevaluated completely.
Yeah, I mean, in the United States, we had a similar case, I think 10 years before the European one happened, because there was an event in which people bought computers and they said they explicitly did not agree to the Windows EULA, and they wanted their money back for the Windows license that they did not want and did not want to pay for. The court at the time said, while it is not unfair to preload with an operating system, it must be possible to refund the cost associated with the Windows license. This is where things got truly bonkers, because as it turns out, the most you get is like $10, because the way that the OEM structures work with Microsoft is, if you're selling enough Windows on computers by default, don't matter. And so the true cost of Windows itself is obscured by the volume in which they sell Windows on there. Because, like, for example, Vince, as a small shop, is probably paying, I'm not going to say that I know the number, but I could guess somewhere maybe double that number. And that cost, you don't pay that if you don't put Windows on it. But like a large vendor, like a Lenovo or Dell or Hewlett-Packard, they'll pay less. And so to me, it's more important, rather than focusing on getting computers without an operating system pre-installed, to get openSUSE pre-installed on computers, because that's the way the market will respond positively to openSUSE, I think, regardless of jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the retail price of a Windows license is, I don't know, $200.
Yeah, about $200 or $300.
Yeah, and if you, as a retailer or OEM manufacturer, you probably pay $5 or less for it. All right, gentlemen, we have about 1.5 hours over, and I have to admit there is some other business waiting for me. What a pleasure to be here in the talk. And if somebody has questions, feel free to ask them on the mailing list or on a Telegram channel where I'm subscribed to. I'm not subscribed to all. And for the rest, thank you, Vince and Adrienne, for organizing this. And I think it was really, really a good idea. We noticed there is so much interest in the board elections. I think I've never seen that before in that way. But I think it was good to see all the candidates, and I'm very positive the next board will be a strong one. We have 5 very good candidates here. So thank you very much.
It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you to all the candidates and the audience for the very good questions. I don't know if Vince, you want to wrap this up, or otherwise.
I will be joining.
We can just play the credits then.
All of them.
And send over the beers.
Right.
The nice music.
Yeah.
So we're done here. For all of you, meet.opensuse.org/bar, open every Friday night.
Oh,
Whenever you decide that the bar is open.
It's right. Serving.
It's a
good
free
point.
and open. It's a free and open bar, so anybody that can is allowed to open the bar, pick a drink, and invite others.
Fedora has the social hour.
And I'm moving over now to the most beautiful woman in the world.
She was touching your head already.
Which is my lovely daughter. So have a good night, and it was nice talking to you. And I'm sorry I was late. Just my stupidity, getting lost in reading something and forgetting the time with my phone still in my bedroom. So I heard nothing.
I mean, Vince literally messaged me like 3 or 4 minutes after I woke up. So like,
but all of you, have a nice evening, and talk to you later. And if you have any questions, feel free to approach me.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you guys. Take care. Bye.